I just remember it was it was it was like I can't do this anymore, God. I am tired of fitting in a box. I'm tired of putting a box around me that I put myself in. I'm tired of others putting me in their box because it protects them and their insecurities. I'm fucking tired of being told, I cuss too much or I'm too opinionated or da da da. I'm just tired of it.
Hi, Janna.
Hello, how are you?
Great. We have Janna Johnson here. I'm so excited. And Janna is a friend of mine, and she is an amazing coach. She is an advocate for mental and physical health. She is an author. You have a new book coming out in December that I'd love to talk to you about. And you've just have done so many great things with your life. So let's just dive in.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, by the way. I love doing podcasts and just talking to people and just kind of helping to share the message of, getting well and overcoming. So for me, I'll just dive right in. And who am I? So I'm a holistic nutritionist and a mindset coach. And how that came about was in 2012. I got diagnosed. Well, I got sick with Lyme disease, but I didn't know it was making me so sick. And it took a year and a half to find out why I was so ill. And when I say sick, I mean, I went from a mom of two toddlers, working full time and also a full time mom to couldn't even function, couldn't even take care of myself. Had to have a full time nanny, couldn't remember anything, and it was literally like an overnight thing almost, it seemed like. So looking back, was it really? No, there was little bitty symptoms that were creeping in, right? But I chalked it up to being a busy mom, hormones, life. And then about six months after I got the bullseye rash, which by the way, I did not know back then that a bullseye rash was Lyme disease. I had no idea. Only 30% of the people that get a bullseye rash, um, only 30% of the people that have Lyme disease ever get the bullseye rash. So I started to just get super, super sick, right? Couldn't function anymore and went to doctor after doctor. And come to find out I had Lyme disease, but it was chronic Lyme at that point because it had taken so long to figure it out. And it was so relieving to know what was making me sick. And then I felt like I got punched in the gut again because there's not an easy way to get rid of Lyme disease if you're even able to do it. And it's a super hard disease to get rid of because the bacteria are protected by a biofilm that's really, really hard to penetrate. So, long story short, I try everything I can to get well, all of the treatments, antibiotics, you name it. And my health was literally just deteriorating to the point I just didn't even want to live anymore. And I would go to bed tonight and pray, please, God, don't let me wake up in the morning. I can't live like this. And it was 24/7. There wasn't 1 second of reprieve. And at the same time, I lived with an invisible disease. It's like looking at me right now, and you're like, you look totally fine. But inside, I was dying. Inside, I couldn't even remember my kids' names or where I lived or my address. And I had a memory loss, and it was absolutely pure hell. And I didn't have anybody. I had a nanny to help me. My husband at the time, um, he didn't really care a whole lot. And so it was a really difficult time. And one day when I reached my absolute lowest point was the day I decided to to think that, you know what, maybe I can get well because I can't live like this anymore. And I know God didn't put these two little precious kids on earth with a mom like this because they deserve better. And I decided to think in my head that maybe I could get well because there's a lot of negative crap about Lyme disease. It can't be eradicated. You can never get well. It just goes dormant. And I'm just like, I just can't do this anymore. And I really started to, I was obsessed with learning about health at this point because there was no doctor that could help me. They didn't even know how to get rid of it. And I'm just at the point where like I don't even want to live anymore. Something's got to give. And I remember that day very well. And I got on my knees and I said, God, if you're putting me through this so I can get well and help one other person, then send me through it. And that was the day that I said, F Lyme. I choose that I can get well. And so what happened was, and I didn't realize it at the time, but when I chose, when I started to think differently and I chose that I could get well, my actions followed. And you have to think, I'm in such a daze, and every day is a blur, day in, day out. I did not take any sort of medications, like neurological stuff for the anxiety or depression. I just had to just live with that every day. And every single second of the day, I just decided I can get well. My body can heal. I can get rid of Lyme disease. And I did. I learned that food was either my medicine or my poison, that sugar feeds all diseases, and that I was making my body a home for this disease because I was giving it the food that it needed to live, right? And so when I took this approach of starving the disease out and no longer feeding it, as well as working on healing my gut and giving me what I needed to live and survive and thrive, but taking that away from the disease, it was a turning point for me. And I was able to completely eradicate Lyme from my body, heal myself. I healed my thyroid because when I got sick, then my thyroid stopped working. It was just this domino effect, right? And I was able to get off of my thyroid medication, heal my gut, and I was healthier than I was before Lyme disease. But it was through that journey that I learned a lot about food and using it as medicine and not poison. And that led me down the road to like, I told God if I was to heal, that I was going to help more people. So I got to keep my promise, right? And so I became a holistic nutritionist and um, helping people, making people feel better. That's my purpose. That's what gives me joy. And it wasn't until after I got well that I realized, when I started to think differently, my actions followed. And so the mindset part to me was always huge, right? And when I got well, I always told myself, I'm going to write a book because when I was really, really sick with Lyme disease, I looked for the story. I looked for the person that had the story that was like me, that they were as sick as I was. Because there's a lot of stories with people with Lyme, but it's just there was nothing like mine that had the neurological issues and the hell that I lived in. At least they didn't say it anyways. And that's all I wanted because that is a story of hope. And I realized that that was meant to be me. I was meant to be the story. So for the longest time, I wanted to write a book. And at the same time as I'm well now, and I got pregnant with my third kid, and I'm starting to just kind of find my voice a little bit. Then the marriage I was in for 15 years was falling apart. And the unthinkable happened, right? The ultimate betrayal. And that right there to me was the second catalyst. So Lyme was the first catalyst in me finding out who I am, what my purpose is. The second catalyst was going through this hell of a divorce, this tumultuous, painful divorce, and going from a full-time mom to only having my kids 50% of the time. But when that ultimate betrayal happens by someone you think you're going to live with the rest of your life, it brought me to my knees. And it was more pain than I ever felt with Lyme disease than I'd ever felt in my life. And my heart was in a million pieces. And I just remember it was like I can't do this anymore, God. I am tired of fitting in a box. I'm tired of putting a box around me that I put myself in. I'm tired of others putting me in their box because it protects them and their insecurities. I'm fucking tired of being told, I cuss too much or I'm too opinionated or da da da. I'm just tired of it. And I don't know if it always takes just a whole lot of pain and heartbreak to bring us to that point, but for me, it did. I'm also a very stubborn person, so that's probably why. But for me, it did. And I just got tired of it. I got tired of appeasing. I got tired of not being who I really was because I didn't want to bother other people. And that was the turning point for me in finding out who I was, loving myself for the first time. I never loved myself. I never liked who I was. I didn't feel confident in who I was. And I realized that I can continue to try to find happiness and love in all these places, but I need to find that within myself first. I need to create my own happiness. I need to love myself first. And it was a journey, right? It's a lot of healing. It's a lot of facing yourself. It's looking in the mirror and not playing the victim anymore. And the victim mindset is absolutely um, not conducive to being a successful person because you're constantly placing the blame. And look, hey, I didn't deserve what happened in my marriage. I didn't deserve to get Lyme disease, but it's not about that. It's that it fucking happened. So what am I going to do with it, right? I'm going to have to pull myself up by my bootstraps. No one else is going to do it for me. And I still have to face it and deal with it. But how do I want to come out when it's over with, right? How do I want to get through this? And there's really only two ways. One way, you walk right through that fire and you come out better. And the other way is you just sit there and let it burn you and everything else in your life. And so this was a huge turning point into me realizing that my purpose here on this life isn't just to be a nutritionist, but it's to really help people stop getting in their own way, right? People are just basically fucking them own selves, so to speak. So my book that comes out this December 11th, is called Unfuck Your Mind. And yeah, that's a little bit of a bold title, but I'm a bold person, right? And my book goes into how we have these limiting beliefs that are created in us, right? How they come about, what it looks like to live with them and the consequences, and how it just filters into every little part of our life, right? All of the decisions we make, the relationships we choose, the jobs we choose, you name it. And then I go through the process of how to shatter those limiting beliefs so you can become exactly who you're meant to be, live the life that you're meant to live. And I can't teach anything that I haven't gone through, right? And I think that our greatest teachers in life are our experiences. The thing is that people sometimes don't realize that you actually have a choice. We have free will, right? You can choose whether you believe every thought that comes in your head. You can choose how you let something affect you. And there's so much power in that. And I didn't always used to be this way. I grew up in a very critical household and in a very closed minded household. And so I was that way for a long time. And if you didn't conform, then that was frowned upon, right? And I've always just kind of been the black sheep of the family and just a little bit different than others. And that's okay. We all have our own footprint, so to speak. And if everyone just wants to be like everyone else and tries to be, that's kind of boring, right? So this is a very long-winded answer, but this is how I got to where I am today and why I do what I do. And you know, if everyone can just really be truly authentic to who they are and stop trying to impress people or appease people, people would live happier lives.
No, I love it. And I feel like now that I'm getting to know you a little bit better, I think that maybe we grew up in a similar situation where we always had to, I know in my world, I was loved for only what I did, not for who I am. So I spent my entire life trying to please other people. And sometimes something huge in your life where it affects your health physically, mentally, and you actually get to a point where you don't know if you can exist anymore. That is the only thing that makes you change and makes you realize that, wow, these handcuffs that I've been strapped in my entire life, they're only in my head. Like I can change this. And you're a true testament to that. Like you had to make a change, or what? Where would you be today if you didn't take your own life into your hands?
Absolutely. And that's true. Like just literally what you said was perfect. The perfect analogy with the handcuffs.
Mhm.
And that's in my book. I call it the invisible chains, right? I feel like everybody lives their life looking in the rearview mirror. But how the hell are you going to get to your destination? Think about you're in the car driving, right? How can you get to your destination if you're looking in the back, living your life in the past, trying to feel? I call it voids, right? You're trying to fill these voids with quicksand. It's just never going to happen.
Mm.
When somebody hurts us, it sucks. And what I do for myself and I teach people is I give myself 24 hours to be have my victim mindset, because I think that's a natural reaction, right? Like, holy shit, this unexpected thing just happened. You're not expecting it. So it's just like, what? Why is this happening? What now? My gosh, blah, blah, blah. Sure, give yourself 48 hours if you need it. But after that, you have to get through the problem. We can't stay stuck in this victim mindset and woe is me. It's not going to do anything for you. And, you know, a lot of the times people are trying to, everything that they do, the relationships they want or they're after, their job, their status, their title, it's a lot of the times it's not for the right reasons. It is because there's somebody somewhere along the line in the past that they're trying to prove themselves to make up for something they didn't get. And I get that because that was me for a long time. I felt invisible growing up, the youngest of four, and I was criticized a lot. I never felt good enough. And that carried with me for 38 years, 30, yeah, something like that. And I didn't have a fulfilling life thinking that way. Not at all. I chose relationships and everything that were trying to fill that void. And I ended up choosing relationships that were making it worse, honestly. And, you know, as a mom of three kids, I just realized, like, what am I teaching my kids? How can I tell my kids that they're good enough and they can be anything they want to be and go after their dreams if I'm not doing the same?
That's exactly it. So when you're a mom, it changes things, right?
Yeah.
You I do look at it like, wow, I need to be that example to my kids that maybe I didn't have growing up. And I don't want them to struggle with the mindset that I struggled with for so many years, or end up with a man like I ended up because of something in my childhood, because I didn't believe I was worth it. So now you're out there, you're helping people through it. I personally love the name of your book.
Well, thank you.
I
I've
think
so far I've had nothing but the same kind of response to it. And, you know, I actually had someone the other day was like, "Oh, that really is the name of your book. That's bold." And it wasn't a negative tone. I was like, "Yep." And then he was like, "Huh, I'm intrigued." 10 minutes later, it's like, "I'm really intrigued by your book. I can't wait to read." And I said, "See, my title worked."
it is. And you know what? Those people that are going to get offended by it, they're not your readers anyway. That's not going to be your audience.
100%, 100%. And I back to what you were saying with the kids. It made me think of something, because you said it so perfectly, which is you don't want your kids to have the same mindset. And when that right there is a sign that you've obviously done some healing, right? Because I couldn't even have had that thought when I was in my old, I say, unhealed victim mindset. But like you, when I did the work and I did the healing, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want my kids to do that. I don't want them to have to go through some of the things that I went through. And I have a chapter in my book that's called Parenting with or Without Chains. And basically it's just whatever limiting beliefs that you have, your limited mindset, when you have kids, do you want to pass that on to them? Because whatever you don't heal from as a parent, you are handing it down to your kids. And it's just the absolute truth. But not only are you handing them your limiting beliefs and passing it down, but then there's going to be others that are created in their own lives from their own environment and experiences. And that's exactly what happened in my own family. And it's not just for me, right? It's both parents. So the limited mindsets and beliefs my dad had and then my mom had, I got all of those, and so did my brothers and sister. And I if I can choose what I pass down to my kids, I'm trying to not pass down the things that hindered me and held me back.
And that's all we can do is say the buck stops here, right? And I've probably similar to you. You work through a lot of stuff, and I believe it's an ongoing thing. Like I don't
Yeah.
believe that it's you're cured from it
Mm-mm.
and you change your mindset in one day, because you're still going to have triggers and you're still going to revert back to that, and it's just how quickly you can recover from it.
Yeah.
But right, you just got to keep going forward. And we have to forgive our parents because they didn't have access to the health resources that we have today, because it was passed on from their parents' generation and their parents' generation. And we are so fortunate to be able to have conversations like this and meet people that are similar, that have the tools that they can share with people to get them through it. So I think this is a brand new generation, and I think the generations after us they're going to be a lot healthier from the parenting that they got. I'm
A
hoping.
100%, 100%. You literally had it head on, which is um this is our parents didn't have these resources, right? And neither did theirs. And the thing is that some people just most people don't even realize the concept of it, right? And that's part of the book, is teaching people that. Hell, I didn't know for the longest time. I didn't have to believe every thought that came in my head. Not every little thing that entered my brain was true.
Mhm.
um I mean, just little concepts like that, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, my parents, that was their parents limiting beliefs, and probably before that, and it just keeps going down and down until someone is like, absolutely not, it's time for it to stop. And you know the resources that we have today, um there's there's no comparison. There was nothing like this when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s. There weren't cell phones. People didn't really use computers much. None of this social media stuff. And we have access to so many resources um, that can really help us. And at the same time, we have access to things that are not good for us. And that's probably one of the things that, as a mom of three kids and my two oldest are teenagers, it's really, really hard because you try to protect your kids. And, you know, I think social media should be a little more restricted for kids than it is. And unfortunately, there's always good with the bad, right? We have more positive resources and helpful resources, especially now with mental health and health in general. But then we also have so many more resources that contribute to some of our issues with mental health and, being sick. So it's really hard. I feel like parents these days, we just have a really hard job because there's so many influences for our kids. And all I can control is my the environment that I create for my kids, right? I can't control what goes on at their father's house half the time, but I can control what I offer them here. And I think if people can just stop trying to control every little thing in life, and trust me, for me, I like to be in control, right? But there's only so much you can control. But you can control your thoughts. You can control what you allow to affect you. You can choose what battles you want to have. And that right there is huge, being able to control things. You can control what people are in your life.
Right.
And, another one of the other topics in my book is, everybody in your life has to earn a seat at the table. And the people that are not supportive of you, who don't love you unconditionally, or just are negative in your life, toxic, I call those people weeds. You need to pluck the weeds out. Okay. Because you cannot fully bloom and have other good flowers in your garden with the weeds in it. They're not going to want to be there. And when I did that in my life, when I decided, you know what, and honestly, going through Lyme disease triggered that, because people who I thought were my friends, hell, even family that I thought cared for me, they were nowhere to be found when I was sick, when I didn't have anything to offer them. And to me, it's quality over quantity. And when you make those simple changes in your life, um, it changes things. When I got rid of things in my life that were no longer serving me well, it made room for the things that will serve me well. So I think that's really important for people to kind of reflect on, is what is serving you well in your life and what is not. And I don't care if it's family or friend, every single person has to earn a seat in your life.
Yeah. Can you touch a little bit on when you do make that decision on to cut somebody out of your life, how you do it? And I know a lot of people feel guilty, like, no, I have to keep that person in my life. They've been my friend since we were in middle school, but it's
Have
just
they
not
though?
serving
Have
you
they really
anymore.
been your friend? That's always a good one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that, and this was part of my healing process, is I realized, like, I I viewed friendships the way I was taught to view them, you know? And um I realized that, like, hey, you don't have to have friends in your life. You want them, but if you need friends in your life, then you're going to just allow anything and anyone to be your friend. And those typically aren't very good friends. And the number one way to figure out who is a weed in your life is to set boundaries. And I call boundaries basically, just picture your backyard, right? Your boundaries are your fence.
Mhm.
Okay. And your boundaries, look, people that are negative in your life and not really your friends, they don't respond well at all to boundaries. It it pisses them off. And so that's what I did in my life. And it began, like I said, after Lyme disease. So when I say I didn't have one person in my life, I didn't. I didn't have my family. My father didn't call me one time. And I thought I was close to these people.
Mhm.
And then I got well. And let me tell you something, when you go through something like Lyme disease and you've lived in pure fucking hell for that long and you get well, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're well. And I'm like, are you? Because you
Mhm.
didn't call me one fucking time when I was sick. Those people pretty much got what I call the closed door on their face.
Mhm.
Then you have people that they get the screen door, right? They can still see what's going on in your life. You can talk to them through the screen door.
Mhm.
They don't get into your life, right?
Mhm.
Then you got people, you close the fucking door on them that they can't see through, but a deadbolt on it.
Right.
And I didn't even know what boundaries were. Hell, I didn't have boundaries in my own life.
Mhm.
And then when I just started to realize, like, you know what? I'm tired of being done this way. I'm tired of friends criticizing me. And, life brings us things along the way, hardships, adversity that really are sent to be our teachers, to groom us, to push us, to mold us into what it is that we need to learn in order to be who we're meant to be. And so this, in my last marriage, here I am, I get well from Lyme disease and I feel better than ever. And let me tell you something, when you've been that sick and you get your life back, man, you've never been so glad to be alive. You don't take little things for granted anymore. And you're definitely not the same person you were before you got sick. And at the same time, the companies that I owned with my then husband, they started to take off and be successful after years of hard work and being without. And success has a funny way of changing people. And people that were in my life at the time, there was quite a few who did not like to see me be successful. It threatened them. And that was a really hard pill to swallow. When people start being ugly at you, they start picking everything apart, what you have, and criticizing every little thing. So it's not like an overnight process. It's like having these realizations of like, is this person really my friend? A true friend? This is what I teach my kids. Look, I'm never gonna just be like, oh, you can't be friends with them unless it's, for a really bad reason. It's that a friend there's three things that have to be done at all times. They have to respect you, they have to respect your family and those you love, and they have to respect your things. And if they can't, those are easy things to do. It's not like, oh, that's kind of hard, is it? No, it's not. And my kids, as now that got to my two oldest are teenagers, they're really starting to apply that in their lives. And I don't force them to. It's just that they see me do that in my life. So I'm like, look, a friend's not going to make fun of you. They're not going to be negative and rude to you. They're not going to make you feel guilty. They're not going to put pressure on you. Another term in my book that I came up with is pressure pushers, right? Pressure pushers are people that constantly apply pressure to you to have you do something because it makes them feel better for some insecurities they have, right? And a lot of the times that can be someone in our family, an extended family. Pressure pushers always get a screen door, okay? And setting boundaries is the best way to figure out who is not meant to be in your life, right? Take a step back from these people. Are they going to reach out to you? Are they going to show that they even want to be in your life or be a part of this friendship if you back away? I was amazed and shocked at the people that were just in my life because of what I had to offer. It made me feel like shit. It really did. And so you said something a minute ago, Jill, about basically it's not like you're cured and these triggers go away. You're 100% right. And healing is to mean like, okay, all right, well, that doesn't bother me anymore. Absolutely not. It is that how it affects you and your perspective on it changes. That's what it is. I have always struggled my whole life with not feeling good enough, like I said earlier, being invisible. Um, and though I have done a lot of healing on that, those are still triggers, right? It's just that they don't take me down like they used to. I don't stay in the victim mindset. It's just like really, again, my perspective on it is different. I just realized that like it's not me. I am good enough, but I still react to certain things. It's just that it's a very temporary, short-lived thing, and then I'm just like, hey, let go and let God, right? And so that was really hard for me when I realized, and honestly, it was in my divorce. My divorce was the turning point for so much in my life, but especially on really who was really there for me. Because when I figured out that a lot of these people um, were there because of what I had to offer, it once again, it's like that you're not good enough reared its ugly head. And that was the major turning point for me and just saying, nope, no more. And
Mhm.
when you find your happiness within yourself and you create it and you love yourself unconditionally and approve of yourself, you don't you don't even welcome anything less than in your life. You attract what you give, you attract what you are. I I went from a person who needed things to make me feel a certain way to like, God, it feels good to be home alone. Fuck, I can breathe. I like being with myself. I don't need anybody in my life. I just I just know that the universe is going to bring me the right people in my life now because I've made room for it. You got to make it's just like our pantry, right? You walk in, you're like, oh, look at all this crap. Half of it's expired. And then you clean it out and you feel better when you walk in. You can put some new products on the shelves that aren't expired, you know?
Some
That's
things
what
that
it
are
feels
good
like to
for
me.
you, things that make your brain work better and your body work better.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't have to sift through the crap to find the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it extremely when I started shedding people, whether I wanted to shed them or they just naturally fell away.
Mm-hmm.
I found it very sad at first, but also extremely fascinating that the people that I thought that loved and cared about me the most I thought they would be proud of me um, for actually becoming me, and they didn't like it. And
Yeah.
again, it's so sad because relationships, decades of relationships that I've had just gone away. But once you realize they didn't even know who I was, they loved the
Yeah.
person that they thought I was, but I wasn't even Jill. So now that I'm Jill, they don't like me, and that's okay because there are plenty of people out there that will.
Yeah. 100. Well, they didn't like you when you changed because then you threatened them.
Right.
You rubbed their insecurities the wrong way because
Mhm.
that's exactly in your shoes. Like I remember that same thought, and I'm like, but does the time matter? It's like, oh, I've known him for 20 years. Well, have you just known them? You met them 20 years ago. How well do you really know them? How well do they really know you? And that's the thing, is that those weeds in your life, you'll know because when you set your boundaries, or you evolve, you grow, if that threatens them, most of the time they just fall off. Most of the times they find the door themselves.
They do.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I've heard this over and over again that some people are in your life for a lifetime, but some
Mm-hmm.
people are in for a season, and
Yeah.
recognizing that it's okay. Some people just come in your life maybe for a week, but
Yeah.
they were there for a reason, and they either you helped them or they helped you, but the time has passed and it's okay. You can, and there's no hard feelings,
No,
just
there's
move
not,
on.
but it's like you said, it's a hard pill to swallow and accept. Um and I know for me, like after going through this whole process, like I said, the divorce was my major turning point into like, oh, I don't want to live like this anymore. I can't take it for another second. I need to shed this old skin
Mhm.
and become who the fuck I'm meant to be, because the way I've been doing it, it ain't working, right? And I had two um women in my life that were my best friends. And at this time, right, I'm going through I'm married. I'm going through this horrible, heartbreaking time, and then going through the divorce, and they were there. And I was like, man, like it took a long time for me to find like my true friends, that these are like my ride or dies, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be 90 years old in a rocking chair. I don't know why you're always in a rocking chair on a porch when you envision you're being old, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? When I was healed from my divorce and becoming the new me, so to speak, those girls who I thought were my best friends had a problem with that. I felt like I was going through a whole nother breakup again. It was both of them at the same time. And here I am in my um hell 40, and it's like, really, again? And it was a year of healing on that, because it was such a hard pill to swallow. And going through that breakup, because that's really what it was, an unexpected breakup, where I'm like, I don't even know what I did. Nothing, I didn't do anything,
Mhm.
right? Like nothing at all. Like what the fuck?
Mhm.
But going through that year was really an eye opener to, like, you know what? God really does bring everybody into your life for a reason. And if you just, I say, let go, let God, whether you're religious or not, I don't, you know, it's the principle of like just trusting the universe and
Mhm.
just being like, you know what? What's meant to be for me is going to be.
Mhm.
Resistance creates resistance. And you know what, guys, if someone's meant to be in your life, they're going to be there. You know, I went through that in my last marriage, where it was like, well, you know, I at least want to know I fought for it, right? That'll never happen again.
Mhm.
You know, someone can fight for me,
Right.
but when someone's meant to be in your life, they will be. And I realize now, looking back, that those two particular girls, women in my life that I thought were my best friends forever, um, I have surpassed and grown their mindset. And now when I look back and I reflect, I'm like, holy crap, I'm not the same person I was then. And I think about my time with them, and I wouldn't even be able to be in the same room with them anymore.
Right.
Someone asked me the other day, like, how do you know? Like, how do you know when you've changed and stuff? And I'm like, that's a great question. I think the only thing I can tell you is that when you look back at who you used to be and you're able to say, that's who I used to be, and I don't recognize myself. Obviously, you don't want to recognize yourself you want it to be in a positive way, but that's me. I look back and I'm like, holy shit, I can't even, I don't recognize who I am anymore. But from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I mean, I have evolved so much that I realized that the universe was really protecting me. Those friendships came into my life because it was another teaching moment.
Absolutely. That's it. I similar situation again. And I felt when I lost my two best friends, that was harder than my
Yes,
divorce.
we have
Like
some
that,
parallel lives. You had two
I
two best friends in a divorce.
uh,
Yeah.
and similar childhood. Like it's. I know we need to have a.
but
We could probably talk for
but you're
hours.
right. Did you just say it was felt like it was harder than your divorce?
It was harder than
Yeah.
my divorce.
Yeah,
I
because you
when I
don't expect, you just, it's just, yeah,
like
absolutely.
of course divorce is sad. I was with him for 24 years, like, and
Yeah.
I had two children with him, and in my head I thought I'm never getting divorced. He's, we're
Yeah.
never getting divorced, we're never getting divorced. And it was more of like a failure feeling for me than
Oh,
really sadness. I felt
yeah.
relieved when I finally make that decision. But when my best friends decided that they weren't going to be a part of my life anymore after the fact, that hurt. That
Yeah.
was
Because
painful.
that's your support. That's your,
Mm-hmm.
everybody needs somebody that they can just
Yeah.
fucking depend on,
Yeah.
because um you can't always pick up your heavy load, so to speak. Sometimes you just need that shoulder to cry on.
Mm-hmm.
And our best friends, as women, our best friends are our everything. That's who we tell the nitty gritty dirty stuff to, that you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
That's where we
But,
typically feel not judged, and then you lose that.
right.
And you
Yeah.
lost it, like I did, when you were going through fucking hell.
Yeah.
You're like,
When you
really,
need
right
it the
now? Bad
most. Right.
timing.
Yeah. Can we do this, but like in a couple years from now after I'm healed?
Can we hold off? Put this
Just
on layaway.
let's time out. But it what it made me do was figure it out on my own, right? I did
Yeah.
the research, I did the work, I put the years in to heal myself. And I today, when I get hit with something, I know how to take care of it without burdening anybody else. Nobody
Yeah.
else even needs to know what I'm going through because I know how to meditate. I know how to put myself in a position where I can peel it apart and think,
Yeah.
okay, this happened. I'm getting triggered. Why am I getting triggered? And kind of, peeling it apart to the point where, like, okay, I can get through this. It's no big deal.
Yeah. I call it self-soothing. And that is, I think, maybe one of the biggest tools. Like I say, we got like our little invisible tool bag, right?
Mhm.
That's one of the best tools we can have in our tool bag because um, that's what got me through Lyme disease was, I mean, all I had was myself. And then the divorce, it's like you look back along your life, especially for the people that have healed or done a lot of healing and inner work, we can reflect and you realize every little bitty hardship and adversity that you chose to take on that you learned from, it was really, really to help you in another part of your life. It was what gave you those tools that you needed for something else in your life. And I
Right.
do believe that when you go through something really, really hard and painful, it's because you're being set up and prepared for something really, really great in life. And I think that's 100% true.
Absolutely. And then we can't heal others. We can't help others
So,
unless we've actually felt it. We've had the pain ourselves. So,
yeah,
like, I don't know whoever is listening to this, but if there's a woman out there, even a man out there that's listening to this that feels alone and they can't
yeah,
talk to anybody because they don't understand, there are people out there that'll listen, that have the tools because they've been there, done that, and they are. And I've noticed the more women like you that I meet that have gone through pretty traumatic things that have the tool belts, you share those tools freely.
yes. And I think that's like an unspoken rule or promise, so to speak, that when you heal, um you're not supposed to keep it to yourself on to how you did it and to what it was like in your experience. You're supposed to share it. And that's why I wrote this book. This book is it's very raw and unfiltered, and the most absolutely painful, um I used to think embarrassing, and I used to think embarrassing moments of my life that I went through or did. I put it all out there. There's not all the dirt that would ever be on me is in that book.
Did you
But you
find
know
it was
what? Huh?
I was going to ask you when you were writing the book, I'm sure it was painful to write, to bring all of that
Oh,
stuff back out to the surface. Did you find it healing at all? Was it therapeutic or did
yeah.
it
My
was?
amazing publisher, Samantha, she said, so it's like in the beginning of this episode, I said, like, I thought I was going to write a book about Lyme disease. I could feel it. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to write a book. This wasn't like that. It was a deep knowing of I'm going to write a book one day. And I don't know why, but I know I am. It's going to be about Lyme disease. And it was just one day this past February or early March where I was like, I'm just want to talk to a publisher. I'm just curious about what this process is like. And, she was asking me questions. Little did I know she's really, having me give her a pitch on it. Right. And I'm talking about Lyme disease and she's just offers me a book deal. And I'm like, holy shit. So as I'm going through the process that you go through and learning how to write a book, um, I remember when on one of our Zoom calls, I was like, Samantha, um, I know that this book was going to be about Lyme disease, but I don't think it is. She was just like, yes. And I was like, are you okay with that? She goes, Jana, I knew it was going to be about something else. She goes, Lyme disease was just one of your catalysts. This book is about so much more. And I was like, holy shit, how did she know? I didn't know the book that was inside of me. I really, really didn't. And as you go through this beautiful process of book mapping, which is what it's called, and you're just digging that back deep, right? From like the moment you can just first remember life. Um, you just there's so many memories that a human has, and you forget about some things, and you go through this process, And she was like, hey, they call book writing a fast track to healing, even areas you thought maybe you've healed. And she was not kidding at all. Um, it was a whirlwind of a process. I loved it. And the book is just finishing and editing right now, which I really love that process. But, I've had people ask me, like, well, aren't you worried about like what people will think that like maybe we're a part of that? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I cannot control what other people did in my life at one point or their actions. The book isn't about them. The book isn't me calling anyone out. I don't list any names. It's just that this particular experience that I had to go through, that someone else had a part in or did, this is how it affected me. It's the experience that I went through in these moments of my life. It's not the person, it's the
Right.
experience and what it did to me. So that's the best way for me to tell those people who are like, aren't you worried? Absolutely not. If someone's offended, then maybe they should look back on the part they had. I
Mhm.
don't really give a shit if they do or not. I'm talking about the experience and what it was like for me.
Mhm. It's like Jillian's podcast, Life Without Secrets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To be brave enough to put your life out there for the world to see
Yeah.
is probably, I would imagine, pretty scary, but probably also extremely liberating.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you grew up in a household where you didn't get to express yourself, here you go. Here you go, world. This is me. So
Yeah.
proud of you. I think that's awesome.
This book is raw and real. And I'm kind of known for sometimes saying the things that everybody else is thinking.
Mhm.
Do I do that out in public? No, I actually have manners, believe it or not. But when I write, writing to me is so cathartic. That is my art, is writing. And I write a lot better than I speak. But, writing to me is just like, that's how you really just let it all out. That's how I reflect. And that's how I relate things and compartmentalize them. And so, everything that we feel in life and that we go through, um, it's all there for a reason. And I think sometimes, well, I think a lot of people these days do a lot of numbing,
Mhm.
whether it's overstimulation, over shopping,
Mhm.
um, spending, I don't even care what it is, drinking, you name it, eating. People numb themselves. They don't want to feel. You have to feel
Right.
to heal.
Mhm.
And healing can be uncomfortable, but we grow in the discomfort. And so for me, when I write, that's how I feel everything and connect. And this book brought out a lot of healing that I did not know was there.
Mhm.
And I felt like as I wrote, I got better and better at writing. And honestly, I can't wait to share it with everyone. And the few people that have read just a little bit have had nothing but really great things to say. And it's been a labor of love. And there will be a book too. I'm sure my husband now is not going to want to hear that. Um, but you know what? Um, this is my purpose in life. My purpose in life is to help people and to help people get out of their own way.
Mhm.
And I wished I'd have had that for me. Um, but I didn't, right? I had to become that person.
Mhm. I am so excited to read your book. I am so excited to share it with everybody. And we'll definitely make sure that we put it, in the remarks section here where, and where people can find it. And
Absolutely.
I'm really excited. I'm excited to get to know you better too. This is great. And you have so much knowledge and you bring so much feeling to the table, and it's beautiful. So
Well,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for
I
being on the
appreciate
show and
that. The book's coming
sharing.
out December 11th, and this is the mock book cover, but it's the real book cover that's being finalized right now. It's going to be very similar to this. There's a lot of reflection on that. But Unfuck Your Mind by Janna Johnson, December 11th. And everybody can find me on Instagram, Revive by Janna. And my
Mhm.
website is the same. And then my podcast is Revive with Janna, just so I can confuse everyone.
Yeah, everyone check it out. So much knowledge and your delivery of how much you care about other people is it's so relevant there. And
Oh,
so
thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we, you know what? We will make sure everybody gets to know where to pick up that book.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. I've enjoyed this and I appreciate it. And um, you know, this has been fun.